Well, for more on this story, we're joined by France 24's Europe editor, Armen Georgian. Hi, Armen.
Hi.
We've seen some important developments in the EU Parliament then today. Tell us what they were.
Yes, so this is what the Parliament has decided is really the last stage before EU member states weigh in, and if they also agree, then the whole thing can be signed in Brazil on December the 20th, which is what President von der Leyen of the European Commission and Antonio Costa, the head of the Council, are hoping to do on the 20th. So there's still some hurdles, but basically this is one step towards actually the Mercosur clearing the final hurdle, and the members of the European Parliament have basically agreed to tighten what's known as the safeguard clause. So it means that if they see problems in, how many imports are coming in from Mercosur, if they suddenly increase by 5%, then there can be an investigation triggered. Also, the investigations should be triggered faster, according to these amendments that were passed today. And there's also something called the reciprocity mechanism, which was also very important to MEPs, so that if they see evidence of imports benefiting from certain preferences coming in from Mercosur, then that can also trigger procedures. So this is being presented by MEPs as important protection for European farmers, though that's not actually what I'm hearing from European farmers.
Right, you had the chance to speak to some farming organisations in Europe earlier this Tuesday. What are they telling you about the deal as it stands now?
Yeah, so I put it to the head of the umbrella organisation in Brussels that represents 22 million farmers, what she thought of the fact that the Parliament had just voted to tighten up this safeguard mechanism. And she said, basically, we still have exactly the same basic problem, which is that Latin American agriculture doesn't have the same standards as European agriculture. It is much looser on things like using pesticides, and she was saying you cannot address that simply through a defensive mechanism on the European side. So any kind of safeguards, anything that the EU comes up with is just a defensive mechanism. It defends in cases of certain things that happen, but it doesn't deal with the fundamental problem of an imbalance in standards. And this is why farmers are still very, very concerned about Mercosur. Also, she was saying you can't just see Mercosur in isolation. You've got to look at the cumulative effect of EU external trade deals, for example, its current arrangements with Ukraine, which she was saying has put pressure on European farmers, on farmers inside the EU, or arrangements with India or other countries. So there's an accumulation of things which are putting pressure on the farming sector. So I think we're going to have to watch the reaction from farmers very closely, Karis. There's a big demonstration planned for December the 18th in Brussels, and no doubt other action will follow depending on what actually happens in Brazil after that on the 20th of December.